What if we could learn from outstanding leaders in business, sports, and education from some of the best voices in corporate America? Lighting the Path is a series of interviews with industry leaders whose stories highlight strategies that build purpose-driven cultures, engage and retain top talent, develop drivers that create high-performance teams, and connect people to the vision of your company. Join us to hear from game-changing, talented leaders whose paths make a difference at work and at home.
Yeah, so this is more than just somebody who's really effective at systems and processes.
Well, that is actually, that's part of the core definition of builder for us as people, process, product, that regardless of field, you will keep on hearing builder leaders talk about that they have to have those components for a winning team.
Right. But what they do, from what I'm hearing you say, is that it's not just having an efficient system or process. It is having world-class systems, processes, effectiveness, be able to bring that up, going back to this word, excellence.
Yeah.
Not just it's functional, right?
Oh, yeah,
Not just functional, but it's actually driving it, has the ability to drive system processes and standards so that output increases and is magnified. And there's a mindset that goes with it. Because you and I both have run into people before that, if they're Band-Aid, they put Band-Aids on systems and processes.
Right. Yeah.
That's not the builder. It's the ability to be able to pursue excellence with what they're doing.
Yes.
Pushing whatever. And so I would feel really reticent if I didn't hit at least the fourth category, fourth style also, which is your strategist. The word itself has its own definition, but what's yours?
Strategist. So of course the word strategy, we all in any organization, you're called upon to think strategically. The word strategist, we could have replaced with a word like conductor, pilot, captain, quarterback. This is the leader at scale. This is the leader in a vast or complex organization. And it generally, when you are in the thousands of employees, the language and the way in which you lead is different. The kind of language you hear out of strategist leaders is around loyalty and mentorship, being mentored and mentoring other people. It's about cross-training, being cross-trained. It's about longevity within an organization. And, the Stephen Covey, the author of 7 Habits, he had this wonderful phrase, personal span of control. Span of control. And for fixers and artists and builders, you tend to see those kind of energies, and the team size is 5 or 10 or 50 or maybe 100. But generally, there's a personal relationship between each of those people such that there is trust, and it is part of how work gets done and leadership is expressed. Strategist has that with some relationships, but it's impossible, given the complexity or the size of the organization, for that to be general. And so they're relying on a completely different kind of framework in terms of how they express their leadership. But to give you an example, one of the leaders we interviewed for the book, she had been the Undersecretary of the Department of Defense. She ran the Navy, Dr. Janine Davidson. And the way she talked about leadership was that that you were looking at systems of systems, and that you were having an impact that in the moment might not be obvious at all, right? But that over time, you could see this massive change. And that kind of language you don't hear from most fixer, artist, builder, those kinds of leaders. It's a completely different language.
Yeah, interesting. And so we have these 4 categories for leadership styles. I want to move this from concept into application for anybody who might be listening to this. And not just somebody coming out of a Google or an Apple or some Fortune 100 company, but if I'm an entrepreneurial business, and I'm trying to figure out what do I need to do to scale to grow, how does this help me? What's the best way for me to be able to use this data in order to be able to become a more effective leader?
It's a great question. You're hitting on the key question. And, our premise is that the more you can be authentic with yourself in terms of what drives you and what powers you, the better you're going to be, the more effective you're going to be, not just in your work, but in whole life and with family and specific to your team. The more authentically you show up, you are then allowing people around you to show up more authentically. And that, we believe is what leads to higher performance for a team. So specifically here, to have some insight into your own wiring, for example, in my case, that I'm so strongly wired artist, well, that has certain advantages on the team, but it also has disadvantages. Or if I don't put it that way, it's just that there's all kinds of things that I'm not the best person, going to be the best person in the team. That acknowledgement right from the get-go is something that can make for a stronger team, based on who else is on the team and what their strengths are.
Yeah, that's an important part of it, because I think that the challenge that we face, especially those of us have an entrepreneurial base, as an entrepreneur and a startup person trying to build something, we have a tendency to have to out of necessity have our fingers on all these different pies, doing all these different things. And really, I think one of the stumbling blocks I know that I ran into in my career was getting to a stage where I had to recognize that I'm not capable of being excellent at everything that's needed to be done. So now what I have to do is I have to learn, where can I put people around me, and how can I literally not just put them around me, but how do I turn something loose, give up control, not responsibility, just control, in order to be able to scale. I think, to me, that's a stumbling block people have, and especially for somebody who is one of these four styles, is to recognize who they are. But just as importantly, what you made me think about is, who am I not? Right? And the fact that I'm not isn't a weakness. It's just reality. And so then I can now put a plan of attack together if they're based upon that. So my favorite phrase that lately has been, so now what? Now that I've dealt with that, so now what do I do with it? How do I move forward? But it really starts with that sort of that self-awareness. I love this authenticity. It's when it first started popping up, we have to be our authentic self. I just kind of felt like it was some Eastern type of thing where we're going to go sit on the beach and cross our legs and do some kind of mantra. But this whole definition of authenticity is what? Define that for me.
It's this genuineness. It's funny, Shakespeare got so many things right. The line, "To thine own self be true." And if it is a start that you can be truthful with yourself, it's a whole lot easier to go out to the world with a less complicated, more simple way of being that takes a whole lot less energy.
You betcha. I love that, because this whole thing of self is, how do I think? How do I emotionally respond? Right? How does my brain literally process relationships? What I was about to say, luggage, wrong word. What baggage am I carrying? That's going to be a filter on how I might be looking at situations and circumstances, and to be able to recognize in that. I also just have to come back one more time to the word, on your wall there about confidence, because if when you come to recognize genuinely where it is that most of you're getting your energy and your effectiveness, that is increasing your confidence, the real true confidence that you can get things done. But part of what has to be confidence there is that, everyone wants to talk about collaboration. Everyone wants to be a great collaborator on a team. Well, what really propels that in the genuine sense is that if I'm confident what I'm good at, I know that I can then, all of the things that I have to go leave to you, Mike, because you're better than I am at it. And that requires confidence on my part to truly be able to collaborate with you. Yes.
Not just lip service, like, oh, we're going to work together or whatever, but but that is something that on a team level, I think we're trying to get at with increasing confidence.
Yeah. So I love this the approach you're talking about, because the word that sits in front of confidence, which is unconditional. And the reason for that is we have a tendency, I know, coming out of South Louisiana, coming to Houston, Texas, I went from a town that was this big to the fourth largest city in the United States. Everybody was older, had more education, had more experience, more everything. And so I was confident, if only, or under certain circumstances. But the journey that I think we're all on is, how do we operate with this place of unconditional confidence, that I'm not going to put a condition on it, I'm going to move forward. But it starts with the ability to understand where am I most effective, and to have unconditional confidence that in that space I can be a catalyst, my dad's favorite word. I can be a catalyst at a leader to make something happen and drive forward on things. And so how does this assessment that you've developed work? I'm just intrigued by that, because I love assessments. I think having an outside mirror like that is a gift.
We've developed, so from the words fixer, artist, builder, strategist, it's called FABS Leadership Assessment. It's about 3 minutes long. It's free. Welcome all your listeners and YouTube viewers to take it. It's at rightleader.com. And what we're seeking to measure and put some, true statistical validity behind is some of the traits we believe are associated with each of the styles. And at the same point, someone taking it is going to get an instant result. And we'd love your, their feedback in terms of, did we get it right? Because at the end of the 3 minutes, you're going to come back and they'll say, looks to us like you're wired, for example, with builder energy. And we're trying to get it, helping people identify a dominant leadership style and also a secondary. Mm-hmm. To give you an example of a trait, Mike, we think that, for example, fixer energy is linear, meaning, take an example with FTX. The guy running it, he's not doing anything else while he's running FTX. Opposite example, Elon Musk, it's totally within artist energy to be doing more than one thing at a time. There's no way Elon could just do Tesla. Mm-hmm. Tesla, SpaceX, Boring Company. Now there is some limit, because I'm not sure he was quite wired to take on Twitter the way he.
Yeah, the question mark there.
Or is done. I think in a way he's a great cautionary example, which is the energy that could have first gone into Twitter would have been fixer, not his.
That's right.
But the point we would say about artist is it needs parallel focus is an oxymoron. It needs multiple activities at one time. All of the artist leaders we interviewed for the book, we would ask them, and we would say, do you tend to work on one thing at a time or more than one thing? And a couple of these highly accomplished leaders are almost jumping out of their seats, which is, I have to work on more than one thing at a time. Well, that premise, which is that fixer and builder are linear energies, artist and strategist are parallel, need multiple things, we're testing out through the assessment, and very much want the engagement of leaders who are taking it to see, did we get it right? We think there are a lot of dimensions where style applies. I'll give you one more. Market tolerance of failure, okay? Artist energy, it's so romantic. We expect the artist to fail 90% of the time, it's okay. I mean, Elon has done so many boneheaded things at all of his companies, and everyone just, it's entertaining. Mm-hmm. You take your average fixer, the market tolerance for failure is really, really low. If as a fixer, you can't actually fix things, you're in the wrong line of work. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if it makes sense, but we see all of these dimensions where we are testing to see the uniqueness within each style.
Yep. Here's as we kind of put a bow around this, because I mean, it's not to watch myself. I could spend the afternoon playing with you. This is a fascinating subject, and but here's the value I found of assessments in this type of a setting, is that if you have an organization and there's 3 or 4 people on the leadership team, a small group, and you assess and you get information, And you go lock yourself up in a room and you talk about it, and you discuss strengths. You discuss areas that you're, I don't even like to use the word strengths or weaknesses, but identifying areas that where you really excel at, and what areas do you struggle at? Because sometimes, there's sometimes I need to be a fixer where that may not be my gift and my strength. But sometimes I got to just tighten up the belt and go be the fixer. But knowing it's going to exhaust lots of energy. So, but it's anytime you look and you can have a dialogue with people that you interact with, clarity comes out of that and information comes out of it. So that's why I encourage anybody who's listening or watching this, reach out to Robert. And because the cool thing about it is he's offering this to you as part of his development, as part of just a resource for you.
Yeah, and Mike, you're bringing up another thing. We're not trying to pigeonhole anyone to say you are only this one thing.
Right.
All of us as leaders, we're bringing everything we've got to bear, to be effective. And, for example, I've been in businesses and run things a long time. I got to solve problems every day, but that's not where I get my energy.
Yeah. If you look at
the key thing, so.
You brought up, I think it's an important thing for us to say. If I understand the point you've made, is that I think all of us have a component of each one of these 4 areas of leadership in it. So it's not that we're not this, but it's similar to, I do a lot of work with your DISC assessment, to help people understand what's my method of communication, what's my sort of preference. It breaks people down into 4 quadrants, and dominant, influencers, steadiness, and conscientious. Same principle works, is that we all have a piece of all 4 of those styles in us. One is just more predominant. One is our go-to, or possibly 2. Same thing with what you're talking about here. But I think what I love about this is it helps us understand, if this is where my gift and strength is, we need to be asking ourselves the question, where am I using this most effectively? And then also from a communication standpoint, if this is my natural tendency, where might this get in my way because I'm not doing, or, there have more needs. I either need to make a pivot or a shift, or or find somebody else to step in that space with me to be able to increase effectiveness. So I'm going to give you, I always like to make sure my guests get sort of the last word. If you look at everything we've talked about, if you're going to pick something that you've not been able to express as of yet, just some method that you've learned out of this journey that you think that somebody listening to this might be able to have a takeaway or have a useful item, anything come to mind?
Well, at risk of repeating myself, the thing I would say to people who are, we're all on this journey, and I think it is for each of us a hero's journey. And that is a daunting thing, to go out and be bold with your own career and your own life. And so it's a little bit of a repeat, but I would just say effective leaders tend to reject more of what is not for their highest and best use. And if you can just think about that in terms of as you're going on the journey, I think it's helpful.
Yeah, so that was not a repeat, because you used a word here that we haven't used yet, and that's about be bold. I think in this time of uncertainty as leaders, the people that choose to follow us, which there's never been a point in time in my career that people have had more choices on who they associate, who they team up with and follow. And we got to work in it as leaders. It has to do with how do we be able to help the people that surround us to focus on areas that will increase their productivity, increase their value. Because if you can help somebody get a higher sense of value of their contribution to the organization, you literally will change lives. And to me, that's, I think, the center post of what we talked about. It's been a joy playing with you today, Robert. And in the show notes, we'll have some contact information, but just in case, why don't you let people know the best way to reach out to you again?
Thanks so much, Mike. I can be reached at InterimExecs.com.
Real easy then. So anyway, Robert, again, I wish you the best on your journey, and thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Mike. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for joining us today on Lighting the Path, Strategies for Tomorrow's Leaders. If anything in this podcast speaks to you, if I've challenged you, or if you want to spend time digging into this subject a little deeper, or if you disagree with me, reach out. My contact information is on our website, lightingthepath.net, or email me at mike@mikelejeune.com. Also, look for me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect our networks. Keep lighting the path for those who choose to follow you. It's more than a responsibility. It's an honor.